Don't. We're still waiting for Bear to go, but I think we should just get it started, right?
Yes. Well, I'm here, so I'm willing to start.
So I'll start then. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second book workshop session for the book entitled "A Feasible Basic Income in Korea to Promote Freedom, Equality, and Sustainable Efficiency." My name is Soomi Lee. I'm going to moderate the session. We have two authors in this classroom, Professor Jong-sung and Professor Nam-hoon Kang. And Professor Seungju Lee is online.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. They are from the Korea Inequality Research Lab at Gachon University. We have four discussants today. Troy Henderson from Australia. Hello. Annie Miller from Scotland. And Karl, you're from US.
Yes.
Yes.
My last name is Widerquist.
Widerquist.
Unless you're from Sweden, and then you're allowed to say Widerquist. But if you're from America, we pronounce it Widerquist.
And Roberto is not here yet, but he's based in Portugal. And so this book workshop is going to be very interactive because their manuscript is really detailed and it's got like a lot of information. But in this session, so I asked one of our authors, Professor Jong-sung to present their plan for Korean basic income for about like 20 to 30 minutes, but I will allow our discussants and the audience to interrupt him. So if you have any questions, because I think it's important to clarify concepts as we go along to fully understand what they're talking about. So feel free to interrupt Professor Yu at any time. And he'll take the question, clarify concepts, and then I'm gonna ask our authors an opportunity to ask questions to the discussants. So specifically, what do you really want to know, right? Like, because we don't often have all these experts from all over the world in one classroom. So please take the advantage of it. And then we just open up the floor and take the questions from the audience. But audience, if you have clarification questions in the middle of the presentations, just feel free to raise your hand. All right, then let's invite Professor Yu.
Thank you. I'm Jong-sung and Professor Nam-hoon Kang, is there, and Seungju Lee is online from Daegu. And we had the first session the day before yesterday, and we have a second session. So unfortunately, I will skip the part and go directly to the second part. Let me briefly introduce Korea's personal income tax system. First, nominal tax rates are very progressive, starting from 6%, 15%, 24%, going up to 45%. And this is the national tax. And there is also local tax is 10% of the national income tax. So if we included 6.6%, and the last one will be 49.5% of. And then there are many exemptions and deductions for income, and then also there are tax credits. And the biggest deduction is employee income deduction. So the rate of deduction is higher for low income, but it continues to go up. And with the same amount of deduction, actual tax deduction is higher for higher income people. So the end result is very regressive result. So without this deduction, our income tax will be very progressive, and it will generate a lot of revenue, but it lessens the progressivity, and total income tax revenue is low. Yeah. So
Can I just ask, is the income tax deduction based on nothing but an income level?
let's go back. So no. So on the 5 million won, 70% of our total employee income is deducted. So 5 million is approximately, it used to be 5,000 US dollars, but now because of training exchange is less than that. And then 40% deducted, 15% deducted, and it goes on. So what is the end result? This is so A represents the employee income deduction according to the employee income bracket. So employee income deduction, the amount goes up as income level rises. And then B is how the deduction is translated into tax reduction. So what ultimately matters is reduce the tax. So for low income people, there is not much thing to reduce from the tax application. So, and then as your income rises, the reduced tax goes up and up. And in addition, there is employee income tax credit, which is go up to a certain level, then it stays, and then later there is a little bit go down. But combining this B and C, the average tax reduction you will see is very regressive. So total average is 1,800,000 won, but for low income people it's very low. And then there is EITC, Korean EITC payment, which is for the working poor. So high income people do not get it, and the low income people get it. But even to combine this EITC payment and this tax reduction, you will see still the higher income people get more benefits from this. So we call this tax expenditure kind of hidden welfare. So one of the idea is this in-work benefits, including both the tax expenditures and the direct payment. Let's make this in-work benefit more progressive. So the universal EITC, the idea is as your earned income rises, your EITC goes up to a certain level, and then it stays the same, flat. It does not go further. But unlike the current EITC, there is no phase out. So all working people will get universal EITC. And traditional EITC is on a household basis, but this is individual level. So our proposal have three components. The first one is Commonwealth dividend basic income, financed by land value tax, carbon tax, and other revenue from common.
Yes, and how much is that per month? Just that component, Commonwealth basic income.
It's about one. We expect
Yeah.
either the starting level will be at least 1.5% of GDP per capita. So
5% of GDP. Yeah.
yeah. Korea's per capita GDP is about 4,000. No.
35,000.
35,000
$35,000 US
Yeah.
dollars.
Roughly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're looking, and 1% of that, so we're looking at,
It's gonna be like $500.
$500 a year.
Is it a year? 1.5% GDP a year? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's,
Yeah, it's a low
that
level.
component's fairly small.
Yeah, very small. But so the idea is this will be always we overall our plan is fiscally neutral. So communal dividend basic income will each year determined by the revenue available. So it can go up or go down. Yeah, but expect at least 1.5%, probably more than that. And there is negative income tax type basic income. And we propose it will be about 7.5% of per capita GDP. So if you combine 1 and 2, it is 9% of GDP per capita. And for the elderly and the disabled, we propose a higher level of 15% of per capita GDP for this negative income tax type. So for the elderly, with combined with the common dividend, it will be 16.5% of GDP per capita. Yes.
So are you saying that the disabled and the elderly population will be integrated in this negative income tax type basic income?
Yes.
Why don't you do it as an allowance?
So let me answer that question.
Okay, later.
Just a little bit later.
Okay.
Yeah, we go there soon. And so the break-even point will be roughly average personal income, which will be about 60% of GDP per capita. And so it goes down. There is a clawback rate of 12.5% for the general population, and 25% of clawback rate for the elderly and disabled. So that their NIT type basic income goes down to zero. It becomes zero at average personal income level, or 60% of GDP per capita.
So this is like a negative income tax with a negative marginal tax rate. When we put these this together with the other things, it's like a negative income tax with a negative marginal tax rate between 0 and 60.
I'm sorry.
Is that right? So when we put this here, so that's this graph that I'm looking at on this slide. That show it's like a negative income tax, except for the tax rate is the income tax rate, the marginal tax rate is actually negative over this round.
Actually, no. That's the universal
For the EITC.
universal EITC.
Yeah.
So negative income tax type is this one.
Yeah, no, when I'm talking about the negative.
Negative income tax.
Well, what happens when we put them together?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to.
Yeah. I'll go there very soon. So negative income tax benefit for the elderly and disabled, and for the general
Yeah.
population. And this is the average personal income. So the benefit goes down, and then there is a tax.
Right.
On the excess income. This is negative income tax type. And then universal earned income tax credit is like this. As your earned income rises, the universal EITC payment goes up, and then it flattens. So combining this will be like this. Okay. So negative income tax like this.
That has
And
a positive marginal tax rate.
yes, so this probably 15 and 12%, 12.5%. And actually, here the tax rate is 10%, there is a slight difference. And then universal EITC goes up like this. The final result is combining these two is like that.
That's combining the two.
Yeah.
So the actual marginal tax rate then
zero
is zero
Here.
until you get to
average
average income.
income. Only after average income, the actually the total benefits. Total benefit is the same, and then here you pay taxes
Got it.
of 10%.
Yeah, these two, yeah.
So there is a question: why do you exclude the non-working population? Why participation in labor market is required in the last session? But
But
actually,
you're not excluding them,
not included.
They're
If
only
you're not
excluded,
working-
they're only excluded from one of the three components, the EITC.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
included in the other two.
Yeah. So, but since you don't have income, you do not work, you don't have income, then
You have other
Yeah.
income, you have royalties, rentals.
yeah.
Dividends.
You don't have earned income.
No.
If you don't have earned income, you don't have a EITC. But you get this full negative income tax type basic income. So if you do not work, you're not excluded. And in the negative income tax, what is the difference between those working and the non-working is for the non-working people, like this. Since
That
there's
looks
no,
like what little they have, you're taking away from them.
so, no. So the difference between,
That's for non-working people who
Yeah.
get the two components, but not the
yeah.
third
is,
component.
So, non-working people, if you do not have any income, you get this much. But if you have a capital income, capital gains, so you have income, then your benefit goes down. And if your income exceeds the average income, you pay for the taxes. So this is for the people with the low earned income. This is for the people with the earned income. And we can explain this this way. This is like, UBI with the different tax rates for earned and unearned income. So, whether working or not, you get same UBI. And then, if you have earned income, for the earned income, up to this point, this earned income is exempt. And then beyond this average income, your earned income is taxed at 10%. But you get the same UBI even if you do not work, but your capital income, capital gains will be taxed immediately at 10%. So in existing positive income taxes, usually earned income tax gets less preferential treatment. So there is more room for tax evasion or exemption for capital income and capital gains. So actually we have to encourage working rather than rent-seeking activities and unearned income. So this really compensates for the disadvantage for earned income, also give incentives for working rather than rent-seeking activities. So if we explain this way, there is no discrimination against those non-working people. only there is a different tax rate for earned and unearned.
Can I ask one question in relation to the unearned income tax credit? With the modeling for that, because you're changing the structure of the incentives,
Yeah.
is it modeled based on previous labor supply responses, or are there some new underlying assumptions about the changes in behavior related to the changes in the incentive structure?
So with regard to universal EITC.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tax and the subsidy, whoever gets it, is shared. So if you tax supplier, then consumer will bear some of the tax burden. If you subsidize employee, some of the benefits will go to employer. So the share of benefits will be shall be determined by the elasticity of labor supply and labor demand. So
Right, so there are
but-
assumptions about labor elasticities that are underpinning
yeah,
this modeling, because it's that complex interaction of three different elements to your package that we talked about yesterday, right? Like what's when you're trying to model the distributional outcomes, which I've seen that you do with micro simulation, that we're trying to look at the NIT, the universal dividend, and the reformed EITC.
yeah.
Yeah, so some of that will be based on standard economic assumptions, right? Rather,
Immediate when we simulate the distributional outcomes, we assume all the benefit goes to the employee.
I would have found this much easier to understand
Yeah.
if we have gross income on the horizontal and net income on the
Yes,
vertical, and the different components would have been filled in, including the underlying income tax system, and then showing
yes,
how,
you need those graphs. Sorry to interrupt you, go on.
yeah.
Yeah. So
But go on.
Yeah, just so that one can see how the whole thing pans out to the whole of the population.
so y-axis can denote the disposable income.
Yes,
So we have disposable income graphs in the manuscript, but we didn't put it in here because it's very complicated. Because we have to reflect existing income taxes and the social insurance contributions. So the graph is a bit complicated. So for simplicity, we just
I find.
Oh, we don't have a moderator,
Oh,
but we have a question from the audience.
Yeah, these
What's
tax
here?
systems are usually really complicated. The way the government does it is they have like, you fill in your own details and then you like with a tax calculator. Do you have a like calculator for your proposal? So that you can put in all the details relevant to the tax system, exactly like you do for a government tax calculator. And then you can compare yours and then the current system to yours. So everyone can just go ding ding.
yeah, co-suggestion. But
yeah,
one thing I have to notice, existing income, the income definition of existing income tax and the definition of income for our purpose are different. So existing income tax, the definition of income is very narrow. But we propose using more comprehensive definition of income. So X, when we X on the axis, the income is not the same income. So actually, it's impossible to draw accurate disposable income, including existing taxes and transfers.
You
Because
see,
the income tax is different. But what we presented in the manuscript is roughly translating the comprehensive income will be this much for the purpose of current income tax. So that way we draw the disposable income graph, but it cannot be an accurate one. So the accurate one will be only come out later, not from the modeling, later by the micro simulation. So that is the later.
If you could have one with earnings and then one graph with earnings, another one with other types of income, and just see how they pan out.
Yeah,
But
two.
did you see this as an opportunity to try and simplify an extremely complicated system? And it's also got lots of tax exemptions, which are very regressive. It might be an opportunity to introduce a more equitable system, tax system, as well as an equitable benefit system.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, it's yeah, so this is in response to the question, why do it and so one more graph. Yeah. This is including the commonwealth dividend and also showing different levels of NIT type basic income for the elderly and elderly. So and also comparing earned income and unearned income. So for earned income, yeah, the net benefit starting from 16.5% of GDP or 9% of GDP. As your earned income rises, your net benefit converges to 9% at 60% of per capita GDP. And then so 1.5 times of GDP per capita, your net benefit becomes 0.
Okay, I have a suggestion, but one of the things that I find worrying about this, well, one of my concerns about this proposal, is that it's so complex. I can think of ways to combine, combine things instead of having these three different components, just come out with a plan that is influenced by these. This is your minimum income grant. This is your marginal tax rate. This is just one plan. That's one way to do it. I don't know if you want to do that. But another way to do it. Another simplification here is you could greatly simplify this plan by treating all income the same. Instead of separating out unearned income and income, just treat it all the same. Then you don't need two graphs here. And how much is that really going to affect the tax burdens of various groups and the overall distribution of income that you're having these different tax rates for these different groups? Just combine. Then you got a simpler plan. Those are two suggestions for simplifications. I don't know if you want to use those.
So just to summarize, then let me ask you that's your question. Why do you separate earned income and unearned income in this scheme?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. And 지금 잠깐.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
네. 네. So, why actually originally Professor Kang and me as well, we proposed remove this employee income deduction and tax credit and increase the tax revenue
Yeah.
will be used to finance the universal basic income.
Mm.
That
Yeah.
was our original proposal. Then working people criticized. Why the previous in-work benefits should go to non-working people? And for example, during the presidential debate, that it was one of the criticism, and Lee Jae-myung didn't respond and just so that means in the debate we lost. So then we thought rather than replacing the current in-work benefits to universal basic income, it will be more practical to reform it into more fair in-work benefits, and more like make it more like a UBI. So rather than household basis, on an individual basis.
It's more like a political choice.
Yeah, and that was one motivation. And another thing, as I justified, on the income is actually treated better in income tax. So a lot of capital gains, like a coin. So a Bitcoin, you earn a lot, you gain a lot, you do not pay tax at all.
Same way in the US.
Yeah. So there is a tendency even among young population. Oh, we cannot buy a house by saving, so invest in coin and buy lotteries. So this universal earned income tax, it's like wage increases by 10%. So it's a little bit of encouragement of working rather than rent seeking, and also a little of fixing the unfair income tax system. So in both purposes, I think we think this could be a one practical solution. Yeah.
One of your sources of potential revenue to pay for this is through getting rid of all of the tax exemptions. And you've said there are masses of them. And I mean, even in the UK, they're worth something like 6% of GDP. You can do quite a lot of basic income with that. And it's a much better argument because a lot of poor people don't realize just how much taxpayers get in increased income according to their gross income, whereas poor people get it deducted in proportion to their gross income. So it's a completely regressive system. And these people who get the tax exemptions can hardly say, oh, it's my right, and you have a duty to give it to me. So they haven't got a leg to stand on. And it'd be very popular with the main population that the rich people should not get these privileges. And if you worked out how much they're worth in terms of tax revenue foregone, and then distribute that equally amongst the population, including the rich people, because you say, right, we're taking away your privileges, but we're including you in the basic income, so you're not completely losing out, you might find you get a much fairer political response.
So one of our early proposal was to remove all the exemptions, deductions, and tax credits,
Yes.
and
Unless
let
there's
them
public interest.
finance universal basic income, and that is so unrealistic to many population. we weren't able to argue for it further. And then we came to narrow, use this employee income deduction, which is the biggest item, and then personal deductions, which is the second largest item. So personal deductions and the employee deduction and some other small deductions like child tax credit, those kind of things, at least they can be used to finance universal basic income and universal earned income tax credit. So personal deductions will be used to finance universal basic income, and the employee income deduction will finance universal earned income tax credit. That is our proposal. For example, there is exemptions like exemption of social security contributions. And if we argue for removing social security contributions deduction, then there will be massive criticism. And there is a credit card deduction, which is very popular among South Korean working population. So that is also hard sell. So for various reasons, we have found that removing all the deductions and those things, there are vested interests. So it is so difficult. So on the one hand, we'll continue to streamline these deductions and credits. That's one thing, but we cannot wait until we reform all the income tax system. So we propose a partial income tax reform system, and then also partial, which we think will be more immediately acceptable proposal.
Okay, can we get Emma in here?
Yes, right here.
A, B, C, and D household, that they're all based on household in the current system.
No. This is all individual. Only EITC
But
is the household basis.
so, so it's okay. So your tax deductions,
Yes,
none of that,
We
they're
have
all
to-
individual.
Yeah, individual. Completely.
So it's
There's no couple joint taxation.
Right, so it's, so if you were to, if you were, this is a bit of a tangent, but if you were to just take out the household-based aspect of the EITC and not touch anything else, how much would that change? Like, would you end up, like, how many more, women would be getting the EITC, for example?
Just transforming this into individual.
Yeah, what do you,
The overall distribution will not change. Very little change, because currently more than 6% of EITC recipients are single member households.
yeah, but
Really?
that's
And
probably.
so, and then for the for the rest of the about 40% of recipients, I think roughly half is a single earner. Perhaps
That's
more than that. So dual earner family, actually, dual earner is perhaps between 10% and 20% of this. So by changing it into individual level, the distribution outcome will change very little.
But then her question is
Yeah.
not a gender specific behavior.
Gender
Yeah.
equality.
Uh-huh.
In the current system, EIT's payment goes to the husband in 1 year and the other year goes to the wife. So they alternate the recipient.
Interesting.
Yeah. The current system. Yeah.
So, okay.
Although household basis is gender
So,
kind of.
But it's individual based, the
Yeah.
tax system is individual based.
Yes, but EIT's payment.
Oh, right.
except the EITC.
Yeah.
And so you're saying that the number of women who are in these low income tax brackets in couples
Mhm.
is just really low.
Mhm.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're basically that demographic of poor women in relationships.
Actually, if you are dual learner couple, you are likely have quite high level of earned
Yeah,
income.
but you might
So-
have a higher collective income, but
Yeah.
some, what, that
Then
that
you are
strikes me as
eligible for
interesting.
EITC payment.
Yeah, okay,
You're talking about marriage penalty.
yeah,
Okay,
okay. It's just to that's to clarify.
I think Troy,
Oh, Troy,
his
you want-
hand,
Yeah, just a few different things. One is that I really do sympathize with the difficulty of dealing with tax concessions. Because we have a whole lot of complex ones in Australia that are about 6% of GDP. And they focus heavily on pension concessions and ones around housing, and they're totally regressive, like the ones you outline here. But they're proved intractable to political change because it's very easy to run a scare campaign around them. So I understand the challenge there. I do really think that you need those kind of illustrative individual examples that you might get out of, because it's such a complex proposal, sort of what Emma was talking about and a few people the other day, that's part of that opening chapter that Philippe and Annie talked about, that spells this out in digestible terms to the average person, because we're still kind of struggling to get across all the detail, having at least read some of it. I just had two other points, so I've gone on a little bit, but there's a whole lot of other fascinating detail which we haven't talked about, the comparative welfare state stuff and OECD comparisons, and the staggering 40% age poverty rate, which I think should also be front and center in the opening chapter. And that links to your penultimate slide, the second last slide, which showed some modeling where the security income delivers a lower poverty rate than your proposal. Now, I understand that's probably that's a population-wide figure, is it? And I thought that could be a tough sell. I presume, I don't know if you break it down by age cohorts and income deciles. Does it at least reduce the rate of poverty in age poverty? Otherwise, I think politically that would be a very tough sell, wouldn't it, to the huge cohort that's living in poverty at the moment.
do you think it's better if you add your comment before he answers?
No.
No, okay, so your next sentence, okay, go ahead and answer.
Okay, so actually, it goes to the last, almost the last one. So when we compare the distributive effects of our proposed programs and the Mayor of Seoul, Oseon's safety income plan. So currently it's just a randomized controlled experiment in Seoul. If he becomes the president, then the safety income may be introduced at the national level. Then what will be the distributive outcome? In terms of inequality reduction effect is greater in our proposal. So Gini coefficient goes down from 0.331 to 0.276. From Ocean's safety income, not much changes, 311. But in terms of poverty, safety income performs better than ours. But there is what is the fiscal consequence? Our program is practically fiscally neutral. We incurs very little, 0.3% of GDP deficit, 0.3% of the GDP deficit, which can be easily financed from other sources. But OSE program requires 3% of GDP, which is not, So if considering this budget amount, our proposed program is not inferior in terms of poverty rate reduction as well, probably.
Okay, Emma.
So what's the size of the population that receives currently no EITC, who's on that zero, who is getting that max? Like what is the population size that's in that first sort of?
Yeah, what,
It's not probably.
yeah, what I want, yeah, I got,
Currently,
I had a
Let me
very
answer
similar
it.
question.
Let
Okay,
me answer it first, sorry.
currently among the working population, less than 30%.
30% of the working population has,
Among the working
no-
poor, among the working poor, less than 30%.
wait, how can they be working poor and have, no earned income? That would be the
So-
non-working
Yeah,
poor.
because.
Non-working poor do not get EITC.
Yeah,
Right,
so
that is
that, and so if you go back to the graph with the blue and the red, the
That one?
that one,
This
yeah,
one.
that one, yeah. So, the people who are like right on that, on the axis of zero, how many people are there?
Ah,
Okay.
Yeah.
People in now, right?
Yeah, like
You
how
mean like
many
a no-
people in your proposal will be receiving that max amount?
Maximum amount,
Yeah,
I think about 40% of population,
Because.
all the children,
Old age and
all the children. And many of the old people will get the full maximum.
yeah, that's a massive exciting proposal then, yeah,
Yeah.
that's like
Because
really
they have no
transformative.
earned income,
Yeah.
no earned income.
Like,
Yeah.
it's huge.
Yeah, my question, which it's farther from this, and I thought, this, this justification for like treating earned income so different from unearned income. How many people in the bottom quintile, the lowest 20% of in the income distribution, what portion of that people actually have no earned income? And they're in the bottom 20% of the of the income distribution, and all their money comes from unearned income
So,
of working age adults, not children.
working age.
Yeah.
Working age population, I think close to 20% have no income.
That's not my question.
So,
What was the question?
Have they,
what's your question again?
people in the bottom 20% who are living off capital income or royalties, people who have income, but actually none of it is earned.
Oh, it is all
These
earned.
people, like, because
And
you're going through all this trouble
Yeah.
to treat unearned income differently than earned income
Mhm.
from dollar one or won one.
Mhm.
Are there actually these people who are making like the equivalent of $10,000 a year, whatever that is in won, who are actually, none of that money is earned,
Mhm.
and they're making off capital income?
Mhm.
Do these people even exist?
yes, yes.
Yeah, are there, how many, what's the percentage of the bottom quintile of
Yes,
of people who have income?
We don't know.
Individual distribution. No.
Working age adults.
No, if you mention about the distribution, personal distribution,
Yeah,
individual, so the individuals with no income but they are partners or family members of the.
that's not what I'm talking about. You're trying to exclude people who have income,
Yeah,
but it's not earned.
저기 소득이 있는데 그 노동소득 말고
자산소득.
자산소득만으로 사는 가난한 사람이 얼마나 되냐.
가난한 사람,
네, 소득이 이제 조금
그러니까 이제 제 말은요, 사람의 소득을 한 사람 한 사람 나열하면 소득이 없는 사람이 있잖아요. 그 사람들은 부자가 많아요. 부자 가족이 많잖아요.
여기요.
하우스와이프, 올드 에이지
그게
펜션.
얼마나 돼요, 퍼센테이지가?
Working age adults
Yeah, we're getting there.
with capital income.
그게 몇 퍼센트 정도 돼요? 그러니까 부자인데 그렇게
일단-
사는 인컴을 하고
일단
있는
노동 참가율이 60% 정도니까
네, 40%
40% 정도는 일을 안 하고
네.
패밀리 인컴으로 살아가죠.
아,
근데 지금 질문이
네,
가구 단위로
네.
해서 가장 가난한 가구를 묻는 거라면
아니요.
네. 근데 개인 단위로
오케이.
쭉 나열해서
네. 가구 단위로는 어떻게 돼요?
가구 단위로 하는 거라면 지금 우리가 설명하기가 조금 힘든 게
네.
왜냐하면 지금 우리는 인디비주얼 단위로 지금 설명하고
네네네. Among the working adults, the labor participation rate is about 60%.
That's
So
not my
they
question.
think that 40% of those people are getting income from their partners, but then they don't necessarily know whether their incomes from the labor or the capital. So I don't think they have the numbers.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about poor households. People who have an income of like $10,000 a year.
They don't
They're
have
not
an
getting
answer.
money from a working spouse. They're getting money from their stock portfolio. They make $10,000 a year and they live on that $10,000 a year and don't earn income. I don't think these people exist. Those are the people you're trying to exclude by treating earned income different than capital income.
Actually, but yeah, yes. So there are poor people with some a little bit of unearned income. Yeah.
Yes, but
Yeah,
most of
yeah.
those people also make earned income. Because the question that
Also, if they
they
make
have
own
no
income,
earned income,
so
but they have unearned income.
so if they have earned income just a little bit, then they come here. Yeah, for the earned income, you get this much. Your universal EITC.
But
And then
My question is, how many of these people are there? Are there any people in Korea who do not work at all? And they
Not
do
any-
not have any earned income. They don't have a spouse with earned income. But they have unearned income and they're poor.
and they receive in the current situation they receive a basic
Pension.
yeah,
pension.
No.
yeah,
But is pension taxable? No, I'm talking about taxable unearned income. They make royalties, they make stock dividends, they make capital gains. Do these people exist?
So the poor people do not
Like,
get-
what
Very
percentage of the
people, yeah.
population are we talking?
So it's very negligible. Yeah.
Right, well, if it's
Yeah.
negligible,
Yeah.
why go to the trouble to have this different tax treatment of unearned income? If these people who have low income, but they're non-earners, that's what inspired you. Why go to the trouble to treat it so differently
yeah.
when the amount of people who are in this situation is
You
negative?
mean different tax rate?
So only, yeah, if your income is zero, whether you are working or not, you are given the same
Yeah.
benefit. Yeah, only tax rate is different. Only
And
tax
that's,
rate
and
is
isn't
different.
less part of,
And-
Yeah, but the tax rate is different because supposedly there are these people
Yeah.
who don't work but make this unearned income. But it turns out it's only a negligible amount of people who don't work and make unearned income at this level. So why?
At this level, if
Yeah.
they have both earned income and unearned income, earned income and unearned income will be treated differently.
Why bother to
So-
treat it differently since these are working people to begin with?
He is suggesting the same rate. Yeah, same tax rate. You are
Yeah.
suggesting, yeah. Instead of-
So,
Yeah, because since the reason for different tax rates was to exclude people who don't work. But it turns out these people who don't work but make unearned income at low levels don't,
So-
are a
so-
negligible portion of the population.
yeah,
but
yeah.
the-
so what? But
people who
then
don't work are still getting the NIT.
all the in-work benefits should be removed.
All the inward, I don't know what you're,
So employee income deduction, EITC, all those things should be removed
I would say yes,
to
yes,
remove
I would
the
say yes.
distinction between earned and unearned income. That's so you are.
yeah, just remove the distinction between earned and unearned income. Because this idea that there are a bunch of people who make $10,000 a year in unearned income and don't work.
Yes,
don't
among the
exist.
top family, there are very few people, but if someone individually has no earned income, but they have unearned income,
Yeah,
there is the rich people.
yeah,
So we have to tax differently, more progressive.
but you could solve that with a progressive tax, not by having, not by having different rates for people who are making $10,000 a year. You don't need these different rate between earned income and unearned income. All you need is a progressive rate for all income.
Yeah, high rate.
But we are beginning.
So ideally, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
But the problem, current income tax is more heavily earned income.
Okay, man.
Earned income is more heavily taxed. So
I,
this is a bit of compensation for the.
well, you compensate for that, is just raise the taxes on unearned income.
I agree with you, Carl, but I also think like it makes sense what they're doing. What
Yeah.
they're doing is they're like looking at where they can make the most difference
Yeah.
by doing as little as possible to the existing
Yeah.
system
Uh,
because of the
yeah.
political baggage that they will have. So if you go and you say, I'm gonna take away the EITC, you might as well just give up now. Like that you're
Well, not give up.
like
Take
these
it away.
people- But
I'm not going to take it away, just transfer it instead of an EITC, it's just gonna be an ITC.
yeah, but I'm a right-wing newspaper and I don't give a fuck what you say.
So what? Carl?
Yeah.
Our original proposal was remove all these things
Yeah,
and increase the revenue.
Yeah.
And save the budget from the ITC will be used to finance universal basic income. That was our original proposal.
Okay.
But that is at the moment politically not acceptable.
Mm.
So we came up with a more politically acceptable scale. Which
well,
is distributing these in-work benefits more fairly.
okay, Troy.
More like a UBI, which is, discriminating unearned income, but the current tax system, discriminates against the unearned income, but actually unearned income in the current system, they get preferential treatment as well. So there is no taxation if you make a lot of money from Bitcoin. So,
Well,
yeah.
okay, well, here on my, you got the Emma strategy, which is make as few changes to the existing system as you can, but get some progressive change. And there's my strategy, which is don't pre-compromise. What I think is like you said, oh, there's a lot of opposition to what I'm gonna propose, so I won't even propose it. Well, then you've already dropped a lot of the improvements that you could make to the system. And then, so your opening salvo is much lower than it otherwise could be. And there's no right or wrong in those are two different strategies on how to enter a negotiation. There's not one that's inherently right
Carl,
or
it's
wrong.
why it's called a feasible proposal, right? Like that's the aim of their book, is to try to have, and there's a lot of complexity there, but it's complexity that relates to the structure of Korean political economy and the Korean welfare state.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what I understand. I think we all agree that it needs to be more clearly communicated, the core of the proposal. And I think, you know, taxation of the income poor asset rich is in there somewhere in the taxation of housing, the increase that, which, you know, you agree with the housing tax, and to some degree, I suppose, the corporate tax is going to lean for the carbon tax, which was talked about in the first session. I would look at like results coming out of the micro simulation where you could maybe tweak things to do slightly better on the poverty rate. And that's more of an, you know, an incremental shift. And these things are all based on static simulations anyway, but politically, again, it looks better to have the Gini coefficient thing looks great for the income distribution overall. But to show that you'll improve age poverty by this amount is a political selling point, I think.
Okay, Annie had something to say, right?
Yes. Can I suggest that in your book, you put in prominently data about about the tax exemptions and how much it's costing the economy. Because I'm sure your population doesn't know just how much is given away to rich people, and they should know. And also to give information about the number of economically inactive, the number of people who are unemployed, which is different from that, the number of people who are economically inactive who have zero income, not just from their husbands or spouses, but they have absolutely zero income, and how many of the economically active have big incomes. So you can get a picture of the state of the population, and people can start asking questions about that and informing themselves to say, do we really agree with this? And but one of Karl's points was, if you make your adjustments now, you've lost your negotiating point. Whereas if you start off with what you really want, but you've got a plan B if all else fails, then you're making concessions, but you can ask for things in return. It's part of negotiating strategy, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, those are the two different.
Yeah.
There's lots of different political negotiation strategies, and it really depends on the climate of the politics of the time. This is a really awesome proposal, in my opinion. I think this is like, I don't think we're properly giving credit to just how transformative this is going to be, particularly from a gender perspective. This is massive. So and I'm not like, I'm kind of like, should you be, I don't know, maybe you should be communicating just how massive this is, or maybe we should be sneaking it in. So I don't know the political climate, but I like it. I think it's good.
Although our proposal may look complicated, this is a massive simplification of current system. And one of our arguments in the book is, we are not designing a new program on the white paper, really from scratch. So path dependence, we cannot ignore the path dependence. So some of the compromise is inevitable, especially our purpose is a feasible plan for the next administration, not an ideal plan for 1 century later. So that's
Okay, thank you, Professor. Because I think this is unfinished draft, and there's no contextualizing background from the book, and as a non-Koreans, we don't really fully understand political challenges and the current systems that well. I think there's a lot of confusion. It looks complicated, but then I think we do understand some of it now, but then we don't really have a lot of time. So I'll give you Discussants and also Emma 2 minutes to for the last comment. Karl.
Oh, well, if I had to come up with a last comment, I would actually go back to, stuff we were saying last time, which is, this is, combination of EITC, a citizen's dividend, and, the land, citizen's dividend is one phrase sometimes used in English for a land value tax financed basic income, a land and resource tax financed basic income, and then this so-called NIT type UBI. So it's combining these things. Now, I think you need to focus that more, to embed that more in the international debate within the guaranteed income community about UBI, NIT, and whether they're the same. There are people that believe they're very different and UBI is better. There are people believe they're very different and NIT is better. There are people that believe that they're basically the same thing. The people who believe they're basically the same thing are going to be a lot open to, if you can combine them. A lot of people that believe they're different are going to be very skeptical that it's really possible to have such a thing as an NIT type UBI. And so you should explain why this side thinks that, why that side thinks this, and why you believe it is in fact possible to do this, and why this is an improvement given the situation we're in Korea right now. I think there's a little more discussion there. Another thing, very, very small thing, is sometimes you use the phrase net contributor.
Yeah.
And sometimes you use the phrase net burdener. Well, okay, burdener is not in my English vocabulary. Maybe it's a word, maybe it's not. I would say I've been trying for the last like 5 years to get in the habit of never saying net payer. To always say net contributor. It sounds more positive. And never say net recipient, but say net beneficiary. Because net contributor, net beneficiary sound a lot more positive than net taxpayer, net recipient. So that's my advice for you, to use the same vocabulary I'm using.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Annie.
thank you.
Super quick, 30 seconds.
Oh dear, I got lots of things. I wanted to emphasize what we said last time about having separate dividends, basically for seniors and disability, and that's very important. Otherwise, seniors don't get anything extra for disability. Secondly, if you could have a uniform basic income for all ages of 0.06 of GDP per capita, plus 0.09 PC for seniors. I mean, you could actually make a uniform basic income for everybody, plus an extra top up for seniors. Is this a negative income tax? Your actual system that you had to begin with was not a negative income tax. It was an income tested or means tested benefit system. That's where you got the 100% withdrawal rate. What you're creating may be a negative income tax, but I'm now exploring the idea, is a negative income tax one where the cash benefits are actually administered by the inland revenue system rather than the social security system, because a negative income tax is meant to be where it's all dealt with through the tax system, through repayments through the tax system. So this is where I want to be really pedantic and try and make a difference, but obviously it's not necessarily important.
And maybe we can save it after the session.
Yeah.
Thank you. Troy, you can do it in 30 seconds.
Okay, point one, congratulations. It's really interesting. Could you,
Second.
with
Yeah,
chapter one or the introduction is so clear, and you've spelled out the goal that this is a feasible plan for the next administration, and that should really be able to be translated into a pamphlet that is accessible to a broader audience. So that would be first point. Second quick point, well, it seems like demographic pressures are a big thing in Korea. The aging population, this very high rate of age poverty level. So I want to know, when I read the first chapter, what's going to be the impact on me as an older person in Korea, and also as a younger person working who's carrying more and more of the burden of supporting this industrialized economy facing demographic pressures. What is going to be the benefit to me as a working age person? So 3 points.
Very good, thank you.
Very small one. If you find that your basic income is not sufficient to get up to the reservation wage, then all your effects on EIT and T is not going to be effective because they're not going to be in the working population. So what are you going to do then?
All right, okay, so let's continue this conversation after the session, but I want to thank Emma voluntarily, like, becoming our. And congratulate our authors and thank our discussants. Thank you. Oh, I just finished it, but this is, we ended the session, so go ahead.
This proposal is really, really good. If the Labor Party in Australia would implement something similar or equivalent to it, it would be a signal that they would be they want to look after everybody who's fallen through the cracks. It's a massive, and it's got the least impact to the current system. I think it's a really, really, really good, particularly in Korea's current political climate. I think it's a fucking amazing proposal. I think you need a
That's
calculator.
great, but really.
I think you need to get a calculator.
Right,
Like,
now.
Right,
I should start by saying the first duty of the government is to look after the people, not the property. And to
yeah.
make that point.
Thanks, everyone.
thank you, everyone.
Thanks, yeah, congratulations. This is very good. I hope you'll include the English language version. I hope you'll send a proposal to get the English language version in the Palgrave series.
Yeah, yeah.